Tonight, you are going to put your child to sleep in a room of their own. A crib with soft sheets, a baby monitor glowing on the nightstand, the door closed, the house quiet. You will barely think about it, but for most of human history, a baby sleeping alone like that might not have survived the night. There was no crib, no monitor, no doctor to call, only darkness, cold, and whatever was outside, able to sense a newborn from far away. For thousands of years, every one of your ancestors faced the same problem. Human babies are among the most helpless creatures on Earth, and keeping them alive was one of the hardest tasks our species ever faced. How they managed it changes the way we think about parenting, family, and what the human body was actually built for. Let's start with the problem, because the problem is us. A newborn horse can stand and walk within hours of birth. A newborn chimpanzee can grip its mother's fur and hold on from the first minute. A human newborn cannot even hold up its own head. It cannot walk for a year. It cannot feed itself for years. It cannot survive one night without someone else keeping it alive. Among all primates, human babies are born the most unfinished, and the reason is the brain. The human brain is so large that if it reached full size before birth, it could not pass through the birth canal. So nature made a trade. Human babies are born with brains that are only about 25% of their adult size. A chimpanzee is born with about 40%. That means most of human brain development happens after birth, while the child is completely defenseless. This is not a mistake, it is the cost. We received the most powerful brain on the planet, and the price was the most helpless infant on the planet. For thousands of years, every mother faced that same equation. A baby that could not cling, a baby that could not run, a baby that could not even stay quiet when danger was near. In a world full of wild animals, that baby was not only a blessing, it was a target. So how did they keep it alive? The answer is something modern humans have almost completely forgotten. They did not do it alone. But there is another part of the story almost nobody talks about. The way ancient humans raised children did more than keep them alive. It shaped how children learn to think. Today, we often assume intelligence develops inside one child's head. You send them to school, they sit at a desk, they receive information alone and are tested alone. In our world, learning is treated like a solo performance. For our ancestors, that would have made no sense. In 2005, developmental psychologist Barbara Rogoff at the University of California, Santa Cruz published extensive research on what she called learning through intent participation. She studied indigenous communities in Guatemala, Mexico, and across the Americas, and found that children in these groups did not learn mainly through formal instruction. They learned by being included in adult life from birth. A 2-year-old sitting on a grandmother's lap while she wove fabric was not simply being entertained. That child was absorbing rhythm, pattern, sequence, and attention through the body of another person. A 4-year-old listening while adults planned a hunt around the fire was not just overhearing a conversation. That child was being included in shared thinking, learning how adults reason, argue, negotiate, and make decisions, not through lessons, but through presence. This is very different from how many modern children learn. Modern children are often separated from adult work almost completely. They are placed in rooms with other children their age and taught by one adult who is not their parent. Knowledge comes through explanation. For thousands of years, knowledge came through proximity. You learned because you were there, and you were there because there was nowhere else to be. The group was the classroom, and the classroom never closed. This had consequences researchers are only now beginning to measure. In 2011, a cross-cultural study published in Developmental Psychology found that children raised in tight communal settings showed earlier development of what psychologists call theory of mind, the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, intentions, and feelings different from your own. Children raised in communal environments could pass theory of mind tests up to a full year earlier than children raised in isolated nuclear family settings. They were not simply smarter, they were more socially tuned. They had spent every waking moment surrounded by different people, reactions, voices, moods, and emotional textures. Their brains had more data. They understood people faster because they had been surrounded by people since the day they were born. Now think about the opposite. A child growing up in a modern apartment with 1 or 2 caregivers, screens for stimulation, and limited contact with adults outside the immediate family is building the same social brain with far less input. The hardware is the same, the data stream is much narrower. And while the child's mind was shaped by the group, the child's physical survival depended on something just as communal: carrying. A baby on the ground was a dead baby. When early humans began walking upright, they lost the body hair that primate infants used to cling to their mothers. A chimpanzee baby grips its mother's fur from birth and hangs on. A human baby has nothing to hold, so mothers carried them every hour, every day, for years. They made slings from animal hides and plant fibers. In Italy, archaeologists found an ancient infant burial that included what they believe may have been a decorated baby carrier. But carrying was not just transportation, it was survival technology. When a human infant is picked up and held against a body, its heart rate drops. Its breathing steadies. It often stops crying. Scientists call this the transport response. It is an ancient biological program wired into the nervous system. In the wild, a crying baby could attract predators. A baby that goes quiet when carried is a baby with a better chance of surviving. Your infant still does this today. When you pick up a screaming newborn, hold them to your chest, and they suddenly calm down, that is not only comfort, it is an old survival reflex, running inside human children for as long as humans have existed. The baby senses it is being carried to safety, so it goes quiet. But carrying was not enough. The baby also had to be fed, and what our ancestors fed their babies would make many modern parents uncomfortable. Mothers breastfed for at least 2 to 3 years. In many traditional groups, 4 years or even longer. This was not a lifestyle choice. It was the only option. There was no formula, no bottles, no clean water safe enough for an infant. Breast milk was sterile, nutritionally complete, and filled with antibodies that helped fight infection in a world with no medicine. And when the baby needed more than milk, there was no baby food, no mashed fruit in a jar, no soft cereal from a box. There was pre-mastication. The mother, grandmother, or whoever was caring for the baby chewed a piece of meat, root, or other tough food until it became soft and partly broken down by saliva. Then they passed it directly into the baby's mouth. Saliva carried digestive enzymes and immune factors straight into the child. Some anthropologists believe this may be one origin of human kissing, not romance, not affection. A mother feeding her child in the only way she could. And then there were the grandmothers. This is the part of the story most people do not expect. Most animals die soon after they can no longer reproduce. From a strict biological view, there seems to be little reason to keep a body running once it can no longer produce offspring. But human women often live for decades after they can no longer bear children. Why? In 1997, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah published a study on the Hadza people of Tanzania, one of the last groups still living a traditional foraging life. She found that older women past childbearing age were among the hardest working and most productive foragers in the group. They spent hours in the heat digging tough tubers from hard ground. They gathered food young children could not get on their own, and they fed their grandchildren. This meant mothers could have another baby sooner because grandmother was already helping feed the last one. Hawkes called this the grandmother hypothesis. The idea is that human women outlive their fertility because grandmothers who helped raise grandchildren increased the survival of the whole family line. Your long lifespan exists in part because thousands of years ago, an older woman digging roots under the sun could be the difference between a child living and a child starving. That stage of a woman's life is not a decline. It is a strategy, one of the most successful strategies our species ever developed. And here is the part that should disturb every modern parent watching this. For thousands of years, no human raised a child alone. Never. It was always a group, always a network of hands, always someone to pass the baby to when you could no longer keep your eyes open. The average mother in a traditional community had somewhere between 5 and 15 people actively helping her raise each child every day. Today, in many industrialized countries, that number is 2, often 1. You are sitting in an apartment at 3 a.m. with a screaming infant and nobody is coming. No grandmother down the path, no aunt in the next shelter, no neighbor ready to hold your baby while you sleep for 1 hour. The exhaustion and loneliness modern parents feel is not weakness. It is not a failure of character. It is the result of trying to do alone what your body was never designed to do alone. For almost all of human history, the question was never whether one person could raise a child. The answer was always no. The real question was whether enough people cared about that child to keep it alive. And for thousands of years, enough people did. That is the only reason any of us are here.